Speaking of memory safety, when I was talking about Rust the other day, you mentioned to me that there was like a point where you didn't like Rust, and now if I look at the Serpent tooling, I'd be hard pressed to find stuff that wasn't written in Rust.
It was the evangelism.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't have a conversation without being told to rewrite it in Rust. Not even the tool, the conversation. You just got extremely fucking irritating, to be honest. Like, I got to a point where I just completely ignored people, and you started to hate the mention of Rust. And I think that happened to a lot of people, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they were in my comments.
Yeah, you should redo this in Rust, and it's like, yeah, no, I'm actually choosing Perl, because maintainability. But nah, I just completely switched off to the idea, and I tried it a couple of times, and I couldn't get around the syntax. I think I once described it as a daddy long legs tap dancing through ink, or something like that. Like, it was absolutely fucking horrific. But then one day I decided to reflect on it during my my adventures in D-Lang. You've got to a certain point with a programming language being niche where you're literally having to fucking port the compiler to the new version of LLVM. Like, that was a bit of a wake up call. Yeah. This isn't my job. Well, definitely, I'm trying to build Distro over here to build my gaming engine. Do you remember? So I had another look around, and I did for about 5 or 6 months. I was doing these little comparisons. I was saying what level you'd need to go to get similar output in terms of optimization. And it turned out that D was actually freakishly fast, even with a garbage collector. Astonishingly fast. Really, really productive, and the template and stuff was just fucking absurd. But there were problems. Garbage collection by default never sat easy with me, to be honest, because if at some point I need to be able to pivot to developing firmware or whatever, I need options. GC ain't gonna cut it there, and there was never enough traction against that. There wasn't enough of an ecosystem. It was too fragmented, says the serial distro dev. It would have taken more commitment than I was able to give. I would have been more time working on the language than the distro, and that's not something I want to do. So I thought, fuck it, I'll have another little look at Rust, and then I looked at the syntax again. I was like, and then I thought of something. The one thing that everyone's complaining about is just the syntax for the barrel checker. What baseline have you got to compare it with? Do you know what I mean? There's nothing to compare it with. And people can memory safety this, that, and the other, but it's realistically is the only machine executable language that's not dependent on a GC or a VM that is memory safe. And that's the key differentiator. Alright, you might have your JVMs, you might have like Python. To a degree, there is memory safety, and not so much in concurrency and race conditions, but there is, in the non-dangly sense, there is some level of memory safety. But in terms of compiled time and understood by machine, Rust is basically all there is in that class, right? There's nothing to compare it with in syntax. It doesn't exist. It was the first to do it. So at that point, I was like, okay, you kind of got to be fair. I was being too harsh on the language for something that it basically pioneered.
Sure.
So once I got past that, and I realised, you can actually have some bleeding lifetimes, and a lot of things there, like when it's generic, it just got a lot easier by ignoring that. And then all of a sudden, I thought, I'll give it a go. How hard can it be? And to be honest with you, once you do dive into Rust and you start ignoring, because you can go months without even encountering lifetime issues when you first start Rust, to be quite honest. Like, in terms of the basic difference, you'll never get past the compiler. And even when you do run into compiler issue, it will actually give you a link. Here's a link to understand the issue, here's the documentation, here's the error code, here's a little pointy character exactly where you fucked up.
Yeah.
And if that's not good enough, then when you're using the LSP I use Z, most people use VS Code, but you will actually get the proper diagnostics. You get the relevant fixes, the refactoring opportunities. And on top of that, if you're using Copilot as well, with so I use Cloud 3.5 because GPT-4 is just trash, to be honest. Just deletes half your file. Even though it's a little bit slower, the diagnostics are way fucking better. And it can work out the issues most of the time for you. So with that, and then how many crates are available, license compatible crates, I might say as well, rather than everything being fucking GPL. Because let's be honest, once you get to GPL, your options are limited. It's simple as that. I know people can say, but GPL is our savior. Not when it's GPL 3 and your fucking base is MPL 2, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, no, it is not. Because all of the Serpent stuff now is under MPL 2.
I did notice that. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been more of an MIT guy before. I've used zlib for a few things as well. Apache 2 I used for a bit, but when I actually did my research and when I was working, because I was working at MZLA on Thunderbird for a while as well, and when I did my research, it's basically like, okay, well, what does MPL buy me over, say, using zlib or MIT or any kind of do what the fuck conditions? It basically comes down to patent protections. That's really what it is. And they kind of matter. So I decided I like the license and everything I do henceforth will be MPL. Which was great. Until there comes a point. So one of the design requirements for MOS is it eventually has to eliminate all dynamic linking. Because soul name changes and upgrade are, as we've all seen. libarchive Pac-Man, anyone remember that one? Big bada boom. So, depending on libuid or libblockid or whatever it is an absolute no-go. Because you would have to statically link them, which is fine, except they are LGPL 2.1, which basically elevates to GPL 2 when statically linking, which infects your entire fucking code base. So we couldn't do that. So we couldn't even use block ID. Even for partition management, people don't realise libparted is actually GPL 3. It's not LGPL. GPL 3. So any code that you are doing using libparted, hey, congrats, your entire set of artifacts are now GPL 3. So that would have violated the license for our own code bases because we then use MOS and other components. Same for blasphemy. We use that in other bits and pieces. So it limited our options to the point we basically rewrote most of the functionality we needed from block ID and Rust anyway. In terms of identifying super blocks. And that's what's led to the new Disk RS project. Which is a little bit of a stupid pun as well. It's like Disk Rust. So, but yeah, the idea there is provide the foundations, shared foundations for decent library code for doing disky type things, partition allocation strategies, super block identification, topology, and that, all in one place. So if somebody does then want to go rewrite these daemons and libraries and Rust, there's the tools, go do it yourself. Again, Serpent OS is just the land of Lego. Patent not pending because MPL 2.
So, okay, one of the things I did notice that kind of just, I don't know, it seems like an odd choice. The desktops that are currently supported on Serpent.
Why isn't that Plasma?
Well, yeah, it's GNOME and Cosmic. I'm running KDE right now. My plan is to eventually move it to Cosmic when a couple of the issues that I have are resolved. This is, alpha software will be alpha software, basically. There's a couple of crashes that are very fun that I can that I run into. Besides that, also some memory leaks, which are a bit of a problem, especially when you start using 70 gigabytes of memory. Yeah. Anyway, ignoring that part. Yeah, so GNOME and Cosmic are the desktop options you have right now.
Yep.
Why?
Fair question. No, purely because of my own stack familiarity. That's it.
Fair.
I'm used to working with it. I can package it in my sleep, so it's just an easy thing to maintain while we're building the distro. For Cosmic, I like to bet on things. I want to see Cosmic go far.
Mm-hmm.
I know they got the work cut out from, but they're trying. And if I'm honest, if I'd started Budgie now, not them years ago, I would probably be doing something similar code-wise to what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it struck a chord with me. I don't know that I'd use Iced. I'd probably use Slim, if I'm completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is, you know. Like I think they also had like a similar internal discussion about what they wanted to use there.
Yeah, I believe I've talked to Jeremy about that. I don't know the reason why they ended up going with Iced instead of Slint.
I know Ice exposes more of the W in it stuff, but I know in Slint, because looking through the code the last few days, you can do your own platform provider stuff. Someone I actually wrote their own compositor with Slint, didn't they? It's like it's a paper one. It uses its own custom protocol. But long story short, it works on the same sort of premise for the Qt quick declarative stuff, where you just have a shared buffer in OpenGL and you can just transfer it between things, which is basically how the NVIDIA works. So you can, even in Slint, you can provide a native image and then just render it in any which way. So that's how all integrations, which means in terms of Wayland, that basically means everything, because everything is just a surface and a buffer. Having that option available means, even though there's not a great choice of widgets in there at the moment, they've got all the access kit stuff in there that I was looking at. There's a few backends. They have a Qt5 backend for some reason. I don't even. But one of the really cool things I saw, which I'm planning to use, not gonna lie, they have a Linux KMS backend in Slim.
Okay.
Which means you don't need a display stack. Now, wouldn't that be nice for an installer I saw? A graphical, actually fucking minimal network installer that only has the essentials, not the entire fucking desktop environment. That triggers me. I hate having to ship an entire fucking desktop environment for nobody to use it. Because it's using System D, it's using Draco, which means it's using overlay effect, which is not AUFS, it's not UniF, which means if you touch more than 30 files, it just fucking shit the bed.
I get it. I get it as an option if you want to like test out the distro, right? Like that's neat, sure. Or if there's some issue and you need some Linux environment to fix some, I don't know, you forgot your root password, you want to go reset that, whatever, anything like that.
And it equals bin bash.
Yeah, or you could do that. That is
security.
Yeah. Well, that's what I go. That's what I do. But you know, or any other. You have a disk issue. You want to, for whatever reason, your root is not being mounted, and you want to go and fix that. Whatever, anything like that. You got a UUID wrong when you set things up. Anyway, that's nice to have as an option. However, it would also be nice to not download a 10 gigabyte ISO to install a distro.
Yeah. It's just such a waste of space. To then update it immediately after it's installed. And that's the kicker of watching LibreOffice go past and the first set of updates knowing you will never fucking open it. And it gets to the point, every time the set of updates go past, you've still got it installed because you're scared to remove it in case you end up needing it. But you're just wasting all that data for downloading. But yeah, I mean, even our installer is a network installer. There's literally no point in the desktop either, at all. So being able to support that in future, having an actual just network installer that's also graphical, also pretty, that I'd be looking forward to. I've been doing a bit of research work in the installer department.
Sure, because you can always do like a TUI installer, but like the nice graphical installer is, you know, it's nice to have that.
It's got it. It's kind of, yeah. I mean, I've been doing some experiments with it. It is actually nice to work with. I found it really, really easy to work with. Like the little slim files, they're not hard to figure out. You just whack up a window on the other monitor or just put always on top, and it live updates the file. The callbacks are done in a way that's really easy to access from the Rust stuff, as long as you're willing to accept that the main process is owned by the Slint environment. which you kind of should do anyway because it's the main thread. It gives you callback mechanisms and global functions that you can back and just pass everything across as data models. When you really start to think about it, that's the way it kind of should work. If you think about any, because I've done a lot of GTK work over the years, manually controlling all of the threads and synchronization main loop seems wrong. But that's the way most toolkits already work. Whereas the way that, from what I've seen from Slint the last few days, you've got your UI files, and you're given your UI-based logic and presentation only. There's no way to have real business logic in there because you've got to define your interface points, which are your callbacks and your global functions or global structs. But that basically means that your main entry to your application, your GUI application, is just like, hey, here's this thing. Give me an app window out of it, and I'll do something with it, which is basically hook into all of the callbacks. The only options you have there is to put something back on Slint's event queue, back on its main thread to pipe it back into it. Otherwise, you can't get into it. It becomes a sealed little world.
Did I DC again? What is Discord doing today? Did I DC? Did he DC? Someone DC'd. Oh! Hello?
So there, yeah.
Yeah, Discord's doing Discord things today. It's fine. We already had it happen twice, which is fine. Yes. I'm not sure exactly where things cut off.
Slint good, ice bad.
Fair? Yeah. Yeah, fair. I don't know. The whole Rust GUI scene is relatively new anyway. It a couple of years back, there wasn't really... There just wasn't really anything reasonable to use. There were little experiments here and there, but the fact that you can build a desktop...
Nothing serious.
Yeah, the fact that you can build a desktop in Rust now, that's a relatively new idea.
I mean, that's cool. That's cool and all. Don't let me piss on their parade. A new demo was added to Slint Codebase about 3 weeks ago for the UEFI target. I booted it up earlier on in Cremu. You can literally build a functional GUI app in Slint as an EFI executable.
Okay.
Graphical and pretty and stuff. I was like, what? So now, I've been trying desperately hard not to run down and write a new bootloader to give us all back graphical that we were so fucking terribly robbed of. And then, my brain was like, well, with this, then it came as backend with Slint. Couldn't we have something that's slightly better than Plymouth? Have a really, really fucking proper, beautiful boot splash instead of that one little fucking spinner that everyone's seen next to the framework logo for the last 4 years. Have something actually pretty. So these things coming about, I'm excited about. It sounds stupid, but I've not been excited about Linux graphical stuff in a long. But there's opportunities now. I'm actually starting to open up and start to have cool shit again. And as far as I know, somebody's already trying to do the bootloader stuff.
Okay.
In the NixOS circles.
That's
so
cool.
That'd be kind of cool. That would be kind of cool. But yeah, can you imagine an actual pretty fucking bootloader?
That would be,
Actual menus that are categorized, but still compatible with the system deboot stuff like that would just be. I'd love that. I really would. Instead of having this ugly, just fucking menu structure, give me a pretty boot back.
Yeah, I agree.
Sick of looking at that OEM logo. I'm just done with it.
Yeah.
And then something crashes and it bleeds through again. It's like, oh. I want to go back to the old days of Pretty Linux because we just settled. Really.
It's too professional looking. I like fun.
Yeah.
Flat and professional.
Yeah, I mean, I basically come from the world of UX theme multi-patcher. So, like, if I ain't getting a pirate boot splash on this, nobody's having it. So, those are good old days. Windows XP pirated it.